In this video, we're going to talk a little bit more about core business concept. And I know that you hear this quite often in the classes you're taking and around the people that work with Elm and Data Vault. So we're just going to dive in a little bit more into what does it mean to say core business concept? Why is it important to say it? So let's look at some of the definitional components of what's meant by what it is we model, which is core business concepts. First of all, the one really important thing to understand is that all of these core business concepts already exist. When we walk into an organization, they're all there. They don't need to be created. They just need to be identified. We just need to find them. That's it. It's kind of like an Easter hunt. We just got to find them, right? They are all business-driven and business-facing terms because they're literally what is used by business every day. The concept names that we use in business in transacting and working every day we're at the office, every day we're conducting our business, those are the ones we use. They are the most commonly used terms and the most commonly used levels of those terms. So we might get to say, for example, on a very higher level, we have stakeholders in an organization. Well, that's interesting, but that may not be used nearly as commonly as when we talk about the fact that there's employees and there's customers and there's vendors. It's the most commonly used business-facing terms that we use for core business concepts. They are technology and source system agnostic. They shouldn't have anything to do with it. As a matter of fact, we call them timeless, meaning if we were, for example, working at a bank, we should be able to identify the core business concepts if we time travel back to 1894 when that bank was still there. Of course, there are dozens of banks today that were active in 1894. The core business concepts we identified then should be the same ones we're able to identify now. They don't change as a result of the fact that we now have computers and technology. They should be foundational, irregardless of the platforms and technology that capture data. A couple things that they're not. They are not found in sources. So you can't go look at source systems for CBCs. It will be random if you happen to find some there. That's not where they're located. They don't come from the data warehouse team or from the IT team in the business. The IT people are not the persons that are running the business, and so they're not going to be the ones that we should look to for these terms. That's why we have these Elm workshops when we do discovery of our core business concepts. They are not driven by the common models available. So if you're looking at some of these reference models or common industry models, you're not going to find them there. You may, luckily, through concentric circles, if it hasn't been aggregated or generalized, you may find that there are some commonalities, but that would be random. As it turns out, that's not the place to look for core business concepts. They're not abstracted or generic. We don't artificially abstract them away from what people actually use in the business. We focus on what people actually use. They are now bounded by a thing called the rule of 7. We're going to get into that in a separate video on the rule of 7, but that's why it's important to note that there's no reason to go generic. In other words, if we're worried about the complexity of having too many core business concepts, we get that tempered by the realities of the rules of 7, and we'll get into that in a separate video. And then the last thing is, of course, they're not based on technical terms themselves. So here from the book, you probably maybe have seen this before, but what's happening here is we're looking at how frequently certain levels of terms are utilized in the business itself. And so if you look along this curve here, you can see that in the center of it, right, in the center are the things that are most commonly utilized in business today. So for example, some of the terms there, the customer, employee, vendor, loan, sale, deposit, these are the terms people use when they actually transact and work with business. They're not likely to say resource item, or they're not likely to say involved party, unless again, you're part of some elite architecture team discussing the higher level abstractions of your business. While that's an interesting intellectual exercise, it's not really useful for the purposes of our business mapping and modeling, so we kind of put those off to the side. Likewise, we're not looking to get down into the nitty-gritty details of subclassifications and types of certain things. So for example, we're not going to look into just, fixed interest, 24-month, whatever, balloon payment loans, whatever they are. Those are just within the categorization of loans. And of course, there are some more details that separate loans from each other. But the most common term is used around, in this case, loan, customer, employee, that type of thing. So yeah, that's the level of CBC. And again, we'll talk about this quite a bit more, but do check out the Rule of 7 video to get a little bit of an idea of how we don't have to worry about the rampant, too many CBCs within a certain level. Those things will work out just fine. And we'll see you in the next video. Take care.